Hey there, and welcome to the Board Game Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm Nick Angiers, and with me today we have a special guest, Jeremy Rozenhart. Say hi, Jeremy.
How's it going? I'm Jeremy.
So let me guess, your middle name starts with an F, so that your supervillain name would be Frozenheart, right?
Frozen Fart actually was my superhero or supervillain slash bullied as a child nickname.
Oh, well, it depends what dimension you're in, right?
Yeah, of course.
Before we get started about your games and the projects that you got going on right now, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself? So how did you get into gaming and start designing?
Yeah, so it's a little bit weird for me actually. It happened a little bit differently than like a lot of designers, I think, because I didn't start getting into board games that much until I started designing them. Probably the first game that I started working on, which was like this big, way too big for me as a first-time designer, like 4X space game that me and my buddy started working on like way back, like 10 years ago or something like that. That was probably like, I don't know, maybe the 20th game I had played was my own game. But yeah, no, it was fun, and like I really enjoyed the process of like the sort of the creative process of doing the design, and then through that just started getting more and more into playing different games as like a matter of research and this sort of stuff, and then just getting more and more into the hobby in general as well. I worked at a print shop, and I just had resources available to me to like do some kind of creative project.
What about skills? Did you have any? I know you're good at graphic design. Did you have any skills and knowledge that helped you at the beginning?
For sure, I think yeah, like the experience that I had in the print industry did help. I probably actually got more into graphic design as a matter of board game design as well. So that was a skill that I developed over time, just doing more board game stuff. But prior to doing any board game stuff, yeah, like I did have some, knowledge of like CMYK versus RGB and like, like this sort of stuff that eventually ended up helping me when I published my own game. But also just what's possible in terms of printing, and then just from having looked at all these different print jobs and stuff like that, you kind of learn sort of what looks good. I don't know. I was also my background is in marketing. Like you hear that a lot in the board game industry as well these days. Just like you got to know who your audience is. You got to know what kind of game you're making and who it's for.
So tell us a bit about Wizard Thieves. What compelled you to make that game, first of all, and also to self-publish?
So the two actually, I think they kind of go hand in hand. I mean, I had been doing research on Kickstarter well prior to actually starting working on Wizard Thieves at all, even like the first prototype. And it was an area that interested me just because like here's this thing that like allows people who are not companies and they don't have to really invest anything on their own, and they can go and create stuff that they want to make. It's mind-boggling that that's even possible because it wasn't before. And I was working on my other game design at the time, and so like when I heard about Kickstarter, it became like, oh, this might be an option for me when I'm eventually ready to get my space game out. So I had researched that a bunch, and I had decided that I wanted to do a game. I wanted to like try to run my own Kickstarter at some point, and I wanted it to be just like a small project. And then I was traveling with a friend of mine through Europe a few years back, and he had taught me a game which is like the sort of the core concept of my game is based on this other classic card game called Egyptian Rat Screw, which was fun. But there was like as a already somewhat like amateur to moderate design oriented person, I had like picked out all the things that I didn't like about this design, and just kind of thought like, all right, well, if I wanted to like redo this, how would I do it? So I started just working on prototypes for that, how I would want to change it, what I would want to add. And obviously like through that time I was also like I was reading Jamie Stegmaier's blogs, I was reading other blogs, I was watching YouTube videos and stuff like that. Like, and now Jay Cormier has got some YouTube videos about how he started his own publishing company through Kickstarter and stuff. Those are really helpful.
I haven't done a Kickstarter yet, but I've heard that it's a lot of work and it's very stressful, and it just seems very daunting to me. Even though there's lots of resources out there, it seems like the more I read, the more it's like, oh man, do I really want to get into this?
I think it depends on your orientation, how like inclined you are to be like working on a computer first of all for like a good number of hours throughout the day. Some people like really don't have issue with that. I'm a bit of a tall guy and like my back gets sore and stuff, so like those are factors. Those are real factors you got to think about. Like, are you prepared to be on a computer for like 15 hours a day potentially? I think it also depends on like how big your project is, like what you're trying to go for in terms of scope, scale, and then do you have help, which I did not, and that is something that I don't know that I would recommend. It's cool to kind of have your hands on everything in the project, and just like you are the driving force behind all things. So the videos, you're doing them. The graphic design for the page, you're doing it. Like all the logistics of getting manufacturing set up, reaching out to your backers, like just all of it is you. Like you get to learn all those things, and that's great. Learning all those things is awesome, but it definitely is more work. Like the project that I did was definitely on the smaller end, the smaller scale, and it was deliberately so because I didn't want to overwhelm myself with a ridiculous amount of work. And even then, it was still quite. It was definitely a fair bit of work. I like would recommend having at least like one other person to help you just manage things, manage like just like assign different tasks to each of you, like whatever each person is kind of good at. Like, I mean, that's the majority of what you see these days on Kickstarters. Like you'll see, like meet the team sections of a page that show you these are all the individuals that are working on different parts of this project. And I think that there's a reason for that. It's become a very highly competitive market. The degree of quality that is required is extremely high as compared to when Kickstarter first started. I think you could previously, like if you go back and look at some of like the early titles that made like $100,000+, they do not look like the titles that are making $100,000+ now.
For your next project, are you using Kickstarter again now that you have the crowd built up, or are you considering pitching to publishers?
So I actually have a publisher for the next game that I'm putting out. So this publisher, Adam's Apple Games, has picked up the game, and they want to do Kickstarter, I believe, for it. But it's he's a publisher, so he's got a good amount of following already. I'm going to be sort of bringing my backers into the fold as well through just like sharing with them like, hey, I've got a new project coming out. It's being published by this company this time. It's a different like Kickstarter creator, but it's still me. We're kind of like combining forces in that way a little bit, I guess. Yeah.
To someone who is working on their first game, so they haven't published their first game, would you recommend they still take the Kickstarter route like you did, or should they go straight to publishers?
I mean, yeah, it really depends on what you're going for and what your capacity is to put the time and effort in, and what just what you want to get out of it. If you are specifically like, I want to publish a game because I want to sell like 4,000 copies of it or whatever. Well, if you're going to publish on your own, you better have a good amount of time and money to invest into that. However, going with a publisher can help a lot in terms of like, well, they've just done that a bunch of times. Like they have kind of like an email list of like potentially guaranteed backers on day one. So if you're looking to kind of go big, I would definitely recommend going the publisher route. Um, if you just want to have full control and have the experience of putting your own game out and being like like the heart and soul of it, like full all the way through, just like through and through, it works. You can still do it. It's not definitely, there's still like plenty of new creators that are coming on a Kickstarter.
We're right smack dab in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. So how have you been playtesting this game that you're getting ready to release?
Well, as you may have already guessed, online, there's a number of online communities, playtesting communities that exist within Discord and on Facebook. You can join the Board Game Design Lab Facebook group, and often it's fairly easy to find playtesters there if you just make a post or whatever. And yeah, I mean, it's great. It's like rapid iteration is like never been better.
All right, well, I don't think I can take it any longer. Tell us a bit about this new game you got.
Okay, so the new game, it is tentatively called Wildlings right now. We're thinking about other names for it as well, but so it is a game where you are dragons, and you're flying around this map, collecting these colored rings. They're these like sort of magical rings. And then you can use those rings to activate powers. So each ring color has a power associated with it that helps you fly around the board more. So you can collect more rings. So basically you're collecting rings, using them to do even better in your ring collection process, and then ultimately cashing in those rings for a different type of resources. And then there are objectives, scoring objectives that you sort of build towards.
Next question is, so I'm still working on the tagline for this podcast, but it's basically about, so you love board games and you want to do something where it gives you a creative outlet. So you can design, you can publish, you can podcast, you can do YouTube reviews. For someone in that situation who's just starting out, they have a passion for board games and they want to make it into more than just a hobby. Do you have any advice for that kind of person?
The first thing that comes to mind is just do something. Like really that's what I think is the key, is that you're doing something, like whatever it is that you want to, whatever aspect of the board game industry you want to get involved in. If you are taking active steps towards that, then you're not really going wrong. And it can take a while to work up to that. Like when I first started designing, I was meeting up every Sunday with my buddy, and we were working on the design on Sunday, and that was it. We just did a Sunday thing. But like we were doing it. That's really what it comes down to. Because I think a lot of people get caught up on like, oh, I don't think I'd be any good at designing games, or even like, oh, I probably couldn't make quality reviews like the Dice Tower does. Probably not right away. Anyways, it's true. But like, you got to start somewhere, first of all, and second of all, those none of those people started out being as awesome as they are. But yeah, just do it.
Yeah, I love it. And I'm sure Shia LaBeouf would agree as well. Some people get so caught up on like, well, it's going to take me so long to get good at it.
It is.
I'm not going to be making any money, so I'm going to be working for free. But it's a craft, and like any craft, you get good at it by doing it, right? Nobody's just naturally good at making games. They got that way by doing it over and over and over again. We just don't see all the behind the scenes effort that they put into getting good. Last question. This is a fun one. What awesome thing do you want to give a shout out to? It can be a game that you've discovered recently, or a show, or movie, I don't know, a poem. Do people still read poems? Anything you want.
I don't know. Do people still read poems? Really enjoying Unmatched. I've been involved in they had like a design contest recently. So Restoration Games has done this thing where they've decided to just like open up the floodgates for the community to come in and throw whatever designs they want at them for like a set of characters for this game, and then the winners are actually going to get their designs published and stuff. And it has resulted in this like very active community. So like there's just like super awesome community of people that are into this game. So if you haven't seen it, I would recommend checking it out. There's some cool stuff. You can fight King Arthur against Bigfoot, or like Buffy the Vampire Slayer against like Robin Hood or whatever. So if you really want to, you can go down the rabbit hole on this thing now. Like they've got a website called unmatched.cards that's just full of like fan-made designs. So it actually makes for a great design challenge for anybody who's looking for something that's like, oh, I want to design something, but I don't want to like design a full game. This is so much work. Pick up a copy of Unmatched, play it a little bit, and see if you can create your own character for it, because it's the system is fairly fluid, and yeah, a lot of people are having fun with it.
How can people get a hold of you? How can they find you online?
Probably the best way is just reaching out to me through the Wizard Thieves Facebook page. So yeah, or you can always just email me at wizardthieves@gmail.com as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us, Jeremy. Thank you for your time, and thanks everyone for listening. We'll catch you later.
Yeah, thank you.